Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to my YouTube. Check me. I want to cover this Deion Sanders situation where he had a quote on the Rich Eisen show that a lot of people thought were controversial, but a lot of people deemed it to be true. Let's break it down. Let's kind of get into diagnose what he said and talk further to see if there's truth behind it, and talk about why the perception from some from one side feels it's that way. So essentially, Deion Sanders was on the Rich Eisen show. He went on to say this.
Quarterbacks are different.
Yeah.
We want mother, father, dual parent. We want that kid to be 3, 5, and up because he's got to be smart. Not bad decisions off the field at all. My defensive lineman is totally opposite.
What do you mean?
Single mama, trying to get it. He's on free lunch.
And so essentially what Deion Sanders said was this. He basically said, to kind of break it down, he said, for quarterbacks, we want mother, father, dual parent homes, 3, 5, and up. Not bad, no bad stuff off the field, no off-field issues. That's kind of the dynamic of what he wants for players that are quarterbacks. Offensive linemen, he also went to mention 3-0 guys, who are responsible, et cetera. For defensive linemen, he mentioned he wants guys from single family home. They're trying to take care of their mom. Pretty much, he said this. He said, still a single mama trying to get it free lunch, trying to rescue their mama. So pretty much, basically, he essentially wants kids from the hood who are growing up in that typically impoverished area, because there's a link between poverty and single parent homes, or single mothers, essentially. There's an actual link to that. So they had the mentality of being aggressive. Just they got to make it when you take it when rushing the quarterback. That aggressive demeanor that typically isn't associated with patience and intelligence. It's more just the grind and the hustle. Whereas to someone who has all the resources, grew up with the resources, the opportunities, advantages to learn, they have that demeanor in them to be a leader. But let's take a look. Are quarterbacks, if you look at the quarterbacks the past XYZ, if you look at the quarterbacks ever since the NFL has been just playing the Super Bowl, there has not been one quarterback that has won a Super Bowl that grew up in a single-parent home. Not one quarterback. And if you look at the black quarterbacks, Doug Williams, Russell Wilson, and Patrick Mahomes, there's some discrepancies there. But Doug Williams, even though he grew up in a country town, his parents and his family stuck together. Russell Wilson as well too. His parents were together as he grew up. And Doug Williams and Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes is a little different. This is where I started thinking, what are his parameters? And I'm just going to go through the basics and not dive into what he said and the extent of what he said before I right now I'm going to take a look at the Patrick Mahomes. Now, Patrick Mahomes, his parents were split at the age 11. They said it was hard for Mahomes. We all know Patrick Mahomes' father played in the MLB. He was a baseball player. Patrick Mahomes took after his father, was an exceptional baseball player, along with him playing football. So he's an anomaly to what Deion Sanders is saying. 3.5, his grades were good. No issues off the field. And what Deion Sanders is hitting out, it's an undertone as opposed to the other things he said, because he really didn't go into it, and what he's applying may be something a little bit different, and I will get into that. So, so simply, Deion Sanders is talking about Patrick Mahomes, the 2000 Super Bowl winner, and his parents were split. So that's one discrepancy there. Let's take a look at some of the top DNs in the game. And Aaron Donald, Chris Jones, Micah Parsons, both the Bosa brothers, T.J. Watt, all of them have both parents, and they're D-Linemen, and they grew up with both parents. The grades were good. No real off-field issues from these players. Other than the Bosa brothers talking about the kneeling in the Trump area, and then Michael Parsons saying something about Brittany Griner. But other than that, there's no real issues. He needs to. What he's essentially saying is there's a link to people, quarterbacks who grew up assimilated, as opposed to grew up in black culture. And typically, what we like to hear, what we like to see, is quarterbacks who have both parents, who had this lifestyle where both parents were there. They did well in school. They weren't ruffling any feathers, right? Their likability of what society deems to be success, or what the family traditional household is what we like to see. And what we've seen here is a situation where most quarterbacks who grow up assimilated, or they grow up in an area where they're pretty much in white culture, they are more acceptable. Russell Wilson, for example. Russell Wilson grew up in an area, suburbs of Richmond. His father, what was his father? His father was, wrote it down, yeah, so pretty much I'll break it down. Doug Williams, both parents deeply involved in the black community, but dark skin made him not marketable. The complexion of his skin is not marketable to mass society, right? It's the Steph Curry effect. If you are fair skinned, you're more marketable to society. NFL didn't market him as much, but him and Franco Harris did a lot with the Black Football College Hall of Fame. Same thing for Russell Wilson. Both parents, his paternal grandfather was a Confederate colonial. His paternal great grandfather was a Confederate colonial who was freed from the slaves. His great grandfather was a former president of Norfolk State. Then his mother was a faculty at Jackson State. His father played in the NFL, went to Dartmouth, right? Ivy League school. He grew up in the suburbs, nice school. Patrick Mahomes, a little bit different. Parents split at 11. He said it was difficult for him growing up, just during that time period. But his mother mentioned that, her staying in church helped him raise him, as they both were there to raise him, even though they didn't live in the same home. Doug Williams, both parents, small home, deeply involved. But these are three Super Bowl winning quarterbacks that were black. Russell Wilson, 100% black. Doug Williams, black. Mahomes, of course, we know he's mixed, so that marketability is there. Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes are more marketable. Well, you say, Seth, look, those are great quarterbacks, right? We have a mixed dynamic of Mahomes, who didn't have both parents, but was good, won 2 Super Bowls. Doug Williams won a Super Bowl with Washington, and Russell Wilson won one with Seattle. We have a different diverse dynamic from the quarterback perspective, right? So from the quarterback perspective, what am I saying? What I'm saying is this. Typical quarterbacks that grow up who are assimilated in white culture, right? And it's not more or less this undertone of, oh, we want these quarterbacks, right, that are equipped with this livelihood that's so picture perfect, dual parent home, etc., right? It's the assimilation to white culture is what we want our leader to be. That's why Jalen Hurts is so liked. Humility, doesn't say too much to the media, team player. It's not necessarily, these characteristics are what we love, and I want to say it's in tune with the white culture, because still Jalen Hurts isn't as marketable as some of the other quarterbacks that we see. Patrick Mahomes is marketable because he's mixed, right? Hey, look, you're going to sell tickets. I'm going to agree with it, but you're going to sell NFL, sell on Mahomes. But let's see what Mahomes was equipped with compared to other black quarterbacks that have played in the league. So you got Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Mike Vick, Cam Newton, Tyrod Taylor, Kyler Murray, Malik Willis, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott. I'm just naming some names, and we're going to talk about how they are. Jalen Hurts, both parents, black culture, well in tune with black culture, but they love his Saban mentality. Lamar Jackson, single mom. His mom is doing his actual contract. So his mother's actually orchestrating this contract. That is not what people or what the NFL wants to promote, right? They don't like the fact that he plays pickup with kids on the street. They don't like the fact that he takes a gassed out photo. They don't like the fact that he listens to Kodak Black. We don't like the fact that he wears a chains, right? They don't like the fact because it's not marketable to the masses of the NFL. So, and also, typically when you have black quarterbacks, which are more athletic than white quarterbacks, right? Because if a black quarterback runs the ball, we say, oh no, he's not going to stay healthy. If a white quarterback does it, we applaud it because it's out of their characteristics of the traditional white quarterback, like Josh Allen, who can run the ball. I'm trying to think of the white quarterbacks that can run the ball, but mainly Josh Allen. And Heineke did a little bit of running as well too, but they love Josh Allen run the ball. They never talked about him being injured. Same thing with Tebow. They never talked about him being injured, right? So there's a likability of the culture which is assimilated to the white culture that people like to equip their quarterbacks with. Cam Newton, both parents, right? But his demeanor and how he carried himself and him being in tune with black culture is not what was accepted. So we got Kyler Murray, well assimilated. Whenever you see a quarterback play baseball, when it comes to assimilate with white culture, they love it. And I'm not saying being assimilated to white culture is wrong. I'm just saying there's a difference between what they're equipped with when they have this type of personality or this type of feel or look to the public eye. Malik Willis went to Liberty. So we hit the verdict still out on him. Deshaun Watson, who is assimilated, but his situation is a little bit different. You never heard Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray. You never heard these guys go out and speak about what's it called? Any social injustice, social unrest. You never heard them unless they had to, right? And Dak Prescott, you didn't hear a peep from him, but he's well assimilated in his lifestyle as well too. So I'm just saying that it's for this particular reason. What were these quarterbacks equipped with versus the quarterbacks that were in tune with the black culture? Cam Newton, over his course of time, he had Steve Smith for 3 years. They went to the Super Bowl without Steve Smith. They had Greg Olsen and hit the Super Bowl. The year he went to the Super Bowl, they had Kelvin Benjamin and Jericho Cotchery and Ted Ginn. Those are the top receivers he had. Steve Smith Jr., Greg Olsen, Kelvin Benjamin, Ted Ginn, and Jericho Cotchery. Michael Vick, the best receiver he had was Deshaun Jackson. I'm sorry. He had Jerry Maclin, Brian Finneran, Peerless Price. Those are his top receivers. Justin Fields, they're doing him wrong right now. Claypool and Mooney. Jalen Hurts, fortunately, has Smitty and AJ. He has 2 solid receivers. But let's look at what they've given to the quarterbacks who've been assimilated to the white culture. Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Dez Bryant, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, Miles Austin. I think he wasn't playing when he was there. But Jason Witten, Beasley, Randall Cobb, Tavon Austin. DK Metcalf, let's say Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Golden Tate, Doug Baldwin, Lockett. Right? Then let's look at Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Kelsey, Juju Smith-Schuster, Hardman, Sammy Watkins, Kadarius Toney. Sammy Watkins could have easily won a Super Bowl MVP with that route he ran on Sherman. Let's look at Kyler Murray, D-Hop, A.J. Brown, Highwood Brown, Rondell Moore, Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, Zach Ertz. The quarterbacks that are more in tune with the white culture, who are assimilated, who we have this feel, this idea what we like, and when it comes to traditional family home or the American dream, we equip with more. We don't equip the quarterbacks that come from this more because they had to do more to get to that spot. If you give Lamar Jackson any of the receiving core I just stated that these guys had, it's over. And that offense, it's over. Once they see a quarterback who has athletic ability, what do? They make it part of the weaponry, and not make it be something they have a la carte, meaning they use it when they have to use it. Cam Newton, I think, was a solid pocket passer. Lamar Jackson, solid pocket passer. And if you watch the film, you can see. But you don't equip these guys. Justin Fields hasn't even had the opportunity because he's running with a chicken with his head, like a chicken with his head cut off. And I think that Justin Fields may be the only anomaly when it comes to Ohio State quarterbacks that can break the mold. What he did this year with this team and how he played this year with this team, just for them to even stay in games and compete, was exceptional without having a true offense or a quarterback coach under their belt. The quarterback coaches have failed quarterbacks in this league. They failed Carson Wentz. They failed Dak Prescott. They failed Kyler Murray because quarterback coaches don't want to truly develop a quarterback. They want a quarterback to fit in their system. So the perception is, if I have a quarterback that can learn on his own, who's smart on his own, I don't have to develop them. But what happens when you develop a quarterback like Jalen Hurts? Right? You have a guy, Brian Johnson, black quarterback that played in pretty much a spread offense who understands passing concepts, who understands his athletic ability, but focuses on him being a passer. You see how Jalen Hurts developed. But then you get Carson Wentz, who people try to say he works well for our system, and I think Carson Wentz has exceptional talent to be great in this league, but the quarterback coaches have failed him as a quarterback. I go out and say this. the truth behind what Deion Sanders said is not merely, it's not unspoken. It's not the fact that it's implied or we know that. It's the fact that the NFL equips quarterbacks who are more in tune with the American culture that we desire with more than quarterbacks that don't fit that mold. So when Deion Sanders is looking, and Deion Sanders is not saying that this is the baseline of what he goes off of. What Deion Sanders is saying is, hey, there's a link to what we can do with the quarterback of this particular playing style, etc., or this particular criteria, whatever. If I'm in Deion Sanders' position, I'm looking at a player. Okay, can you learn, right? And I would say this: when you have less resources to learn, you find ways to learn, find more ways to learn. And I always say this: billionaires don't impress me because they have a lot, and they have a lot, and they're equipped with a lot, and they had to make a few small changes to, they have the resources, they have everything they need to be successful. But the guys that come from little to nothing, that come from, like he said, single mamas trying to get out, single mom. I don't want to misquote him. He said free lunch, so impoverished areas. They have to be more creative to get to the same point with someone who had all the resources. So if I have a quarterback that had to be more creative to get to the same level of somebody who had the same exact resources, their learning potential and development development trajectory is a lot higher than someone who had all the resources. So I go on to say that because is what Deion Sanders said racist? I don't think he meant to be racist. I think it's the way he thinks, and he doesn't know how. He does. I don't think he understands the reason why he said it. Just going off of what he said, we know that because of how he left HBCUs. So if you're looking at, what are you implying? You want only guys who are single moms because on defensive line, but you have Aaron Donald, Chris Jones, Micah Parsons, Joey Bosa, JJ, the Watt brothers, both of them. All these defensive linemen that are, if they continue to play the way they play or now they're retired, are going to be Hall of Famers. I think it's a misconception, right? You want players, yes, who have those yes, I want a guy who's smart, who understands the game. Yes, I want a guy who values the game. I want a guy who doesn't have any off-field issues. And you're talking about the essence of a man rather than desired, I want this criteria. And I don't think he bases it basically off of that, but I do think that he didn't know the extent of what he was saying behind it when it comes to, the dynamic of what you're describing. Because essentially what you're describing is every guy from the South or an impoverished area, versus a guy, who grew up, like, for example, Trevor Lawrence, or not Trevor Lawrence, most of these, like the Super Bowl winning quarterbacks that had this type of background or childhood behind them. So that's just a quick analysis on what I've seen. I love to know you guys' comments. I think that Deion Sanders is being polarized more and more and more and more, which him and Rich Eisen have a good relationship. They started off at NFL. When Deion Sanders retired, he started off at NFL Network with Rich Eisen. So, but I do think he should be careful, and he doesn't really care, but I do think he should be careful at what he says because and he doesn't know the meaning behind what he says. In some cases, he just says it because he's Deion Sanders and he can get away with it. And if people are arguing about it, here's the thing. If people are arguing about it, you can get away with it in society. And that's what Deion Sanders has figured out. He can walk that fine line of saying something without people, people arguing about it. If there's one side on one thing, then yeah, he'll come out and make a statement. But most of the time he walks that fine line of saying something that if people argue enough about it, he's gonna walk out of there feeling that and to himself and knowing that to himself that he's right. But I don't know your comments, what you guys think. Yeah, I love to hear what everyone else says. But that's just my take on this. These comments by Deion Sanders.